testosterone suspension is a fast acting. What it basically is, it's the testosterone powder in water, essentially. Steris was a company that, an American company that made it. It was legitimately made. It would come in 30 cc bottles. And my experience with using it, I said to my friends, I said, you know what? I know everyone takes this every other day. I said, not only should this be taken every day, I believe it should be taken twice a day. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RS Television, rsmuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind: bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation. We're going to have questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app and, of course, from our Instagram feed. We go right into the questions. First two questions on the show, as always, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. testoylze related question. I've been using testoylze and a healthy, quote, TRT dosage at 400 mg a week, and I'm shocked that I look better now than I did on dbol, deca, tren, and anything else. What's going on? I feel a lot healthier too. What have I done wrong? I don't feel as though anything has changed.
Hormonal imbalance is a really big thing, and I don't think we actually talk about it enough, because as bodybuilders, a lot of us take anabolic steroids and we kind of balance, or we try to balance our hormones by taking exogenous hormones rather than working on our natural, levels and balancing this. Because when your body, as a male at least, produces testosterone, a certain percentage of the testosterone will convert to estrogen and DHT. Dihydrotestosterone. It happens in women too, but women produce so little testosterone, and their testosterone comes from the adrenal androgen DHEA. So they convert DHEA into testosterone, and then they can aromatize that into estrogen, which is very small compared to what they naturally produce, or DHT. And in some women, obviously, they do have DHT issues. But for men, when the DHT, estrogen, testosterone levels get off or out of kilter, you don't feel good. If you have too much estrogen, you can get emotional, and you get, a lot of times guys complain that I feel effed up in the head. That's what they tell me. And we go and send them for blood work, and their estrogen levels are astronomically high. Other guys will tell me that they're losing hair or they're breaking out really bad, and it's depressing them. And it's because they have really high DHT levels. They're converting lots of testosterone to DHT. So when I set out years ago to create a testosterone boosting formula, which, because let's face it, that's a big segment of our supplement market, I realized that not only did you want to raise endogenous testosterone, but most of the problem was the fact that guys converted the testosterone that they were producing to other stuff, and it messed up how they felt, and it decreased the amount of testosterone in their body quite a bit in some cases. So testoylze blocks DHT, not completely, but it blunts its production, and it binds up extra estrogen and pulls it out of the body. So it's balancing your testosterone, raising that up, keeping DHT lower, and keeping estrogen where it should be, rather than having an overabundance of estrogen. In addition to that, when you block or get rid of extra estrogen, okay, your hypothalamus and pituitary gland produce more signal for your body to produce more natural endogenous testosterone. And that's why the product works so well. I have a guy who's 86 years old. He calls the office, talks to my wife all the time. He's always telling us his latest testosterone, because the guy has like an 850 testosterone. It's crazy. And before he started taking testoylze, he was like 500. So he loves the product. You know, are you going to get pharmacological muscle building effects, you know, that you would if you took regular anabolics? Of course not. You know, when you go from physiologic to pharmacological, that's a big difference. But so for people who are just want to feel good, have a good sex drive, you know, have good mental clarity, and just overall have good health, testoylze works really well. For people who want to take it to the next level, then you can take it to the next level. But even if you take HRT, you still want to balance estrogen and DHT levels. A lot of times, however, testoylze is not strong enough when you're doing major cycles of things, because we actually have to take prescription drugs like Arimidex or Femara or finasteride to block DHT to balance those estrogen and DHT levels. And the only way to really know if you're off kilter is to get blood work done and check them out. So I hope that answers the question. This obviously came from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, which is my app that you can download, and it's $29 a month. You get me as a coach in your pocket. Essentially, all my writings, all my videos I've ever done are in one place. We put up a workout every week. I answer everyone's questions, okay, no matter who you are, in an open forum. Everyone sees everyone's questions, everyone's answers, and I do a Q&A video, just like Ask Dave, only exclusively for the app members every single week. So it's a great resource if you want to check it out.
We have another question from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Your thoughts on statins versus natural treatments and dietary changes, any preferences or brands?
Yeah, you know, I'm not really a big fan of statins. There are a lot of side effects to them. And it's funny because they're supposed to, you know, decrease, you know, LDL cholesterol, and supposedly supposed to decrease, you know, the inflammation associated with that. But they're actually inflammatory in themselves. If you actually get your C-reactive protein levels checked, which is a measure of how much inflammation's in your body, a lot of time when you're on statins, they go up. So it's not really a good medication. Now, if you have a genetic predisposition to produce huge amounts of LDL, bad cholesterol, and you just can't get it down naturally, then you know you might have to, especially if you have blockages already, you might have to take a statin. But that's a very rare, small percentage of the population. Most people respond very favorably to diet changes. I put people on my OmegaLyze essential fatty acid supplement that lowers LDL. I put them on some macadamia nut oil or extra virgin olive oil, a couple tablespoons a day, that lowers LDL cholesterol. And I put them on CARBOLYZE because fiber, especially high swell rate, you know, soluble fiber like what I have in my CARBOLYZE product, binds up LDL cholesterol particles and pulls it out of the body. So it really does lower LDL quite significantly. However, you know, having a 150 LDL and trying to get it back to 100, which is normal, is a lot easier to do with supplements than it is if you have a 300 LDL, which is obviously off the charts. Probably if a bodybuilder has that, it's got to be genetically, you know, caused. Steroids don't raise, you know, LDL cholesterol. So usually it's genetic. In that case, you might need to think about a statin. But if you can avoid it, I would try the OmegaLyze, CARBOLYZE route, you know, monounsaturated fat route, which was your extra virgin olive oil or macadamia nut oil. Try that first. Give it a couple months, get retested. If it starts going down, then you're on the right track.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us there, official_RX Muscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, we welcome you. We ask that you subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, updates. Of course, this weekend, the Texas Pro, one of the more most highly anticipated shows of the contest calendar. Obviously, the much anticipated showdown between the likes of an Andrew Jack, Hunter Labrada coming off his Tampa Pro win, and of course, pro debuts, the likes of Jordan Hutchinson, Carlos Thomas Jr., a month after his guest posing at the Victor Martinez. So a lot to look forward to. Obviously, we're going to have wall-to-wall coverage. So subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss anything that we have on this channel. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate all of your support. Let's go to Alexander Ruin. Coach, if you cut down on sets due to overtraining, how can you tell if you're doing enough sets for those body parts tracked by progression? If you feel more rested on a daily basis, your opinion.
You know what the truth of the matter is? When I would be training at my biggest, and even now, even when I go in the gym now, and I train one person in the gym now, this guy Dave, real cool guy. He likes to train hard. I push him and he can't believe I can't even train him 2 days in a row because he's so sore the next day. And we don't do a lot of sets, but the truth is, let's say you're doing chest, for instance, and you're doing incline barbell presses. And let's say you have it set up so that you do 4 sets of that particular exercise. Because, let's face it, if you're halfway strong and you can lift, 315 on the bench or even 225 on the bench, you got to build up to it. You can't just go into the gym and put 225 on and start training. So you're going to do, 135, you're going to do maybe 185, 225, and maybe let's say you go up to 265. So, on your last set, your 4th set or so, you do 265, and let's say you get 4 or 5 good reps out, and your training partner pushes you through another 2 or 3, or you put the weight down and you drop some weight off and you do a drop set and you do maybe another 5 or 6 reps. You should want to go home after that. If you did it right, if you put forth a really true, powerful, high intensity effort, you should almost be like, I'm done with chest already. My next exercise after that is usually I go to incline dumbbell presses or some flat dumbbell presses. I'm warmed up. I go do 2 sets. That's it. But after those 2 sets, and I'm going heavy and heavier. So let's say like nowadays I'm only, lifting like 70-pound dumbbells. That's about as heavy as I go. I do maybe a set of 60s, a set of 70s. I'll get maybe 5 or 6 reps and I'm done. And I'm like, to be honest with you, I don't even want to do more. I go and then I do maybe the machine flies, or I'll do, some dumbbell flies for 1 set, of like maybe like 10 to 12 reps. And I'm done with chest. That's it. You should, if you still feel like, well, maybe I should have done more, then you know what? Then you didn't put enough effort into those sets that you did, because you should not want to do more after that. And if you do, it's either because you think you have to do volume, or you have to do a lot of sets, or you just not put it, you're saving yourself. And I think that's why the high intensity type of program, and I'm not talking about Mensa 1 set, I'm talking about less volume, why it works so well. Because if you know you're going to do less sets, you're going to put way more effort into those less sets. And you know what? It's the more effort that builds the muscle. It's when guys are like, I'm going to do 30 sets. And there's no way you're putting maximum effort into 30 sets. You might not be putting maximum effort into 1 of those 30 sets. So you went through all this volume, you overtrained the muscle, you exhausted all your glycogen, and you didn't even maximally stimulate the muscle and break it down so that it'll build itself bigger. So you just go, what I say, you're just going through the motions essentially in that sense. So find a way that you can put forth a maximum effort. And sometimes, like I said, it takes a training partner, or it takes you hiring someone to push you through your workouts, because I know the guy that I train was not pushing himself hard enough, and his weights have gone up at least 30% since the amount of weight he's lifting since I started working with him. And he just wasn't pushing. He wasn't pushing past the pain barrier. He was doing what was comfortable. And that's just natural. That's normal for people to do. It's not normal to push yourself into the danger zone of lifting weights that you've never lifted before. But if you have someone else there who's going to spot you and who's going to push you, then you'll do it. That's the key.
Dave, understandably so, we do get a lot of questions regarding CARBOLYZE. This one coming from England. So, I mean, obviously, step 1 would be, I guess, one would be back in the market, let alone going from here to Europe.
Yeah, we are bringing it back against my team's suggestion. Here's my thing about, and what I love about CARBOLYZE and what I hate about CARBOLYZE. What I hate, and I can say this, is that people nowadays, a lot of people don't like carb supplements. Most people want protein and they want fat burners and they want vitamins, but carbs just seem to be not in vogue. But everyone needs a carb supplement, especially post-workout if you're trying to grow, and it's just easier to drink them. And especially, post-workout, you want to restore all that glycogen you exhausted. And so, I've looked at over the years, all the different carb supplements on the market, and the only one I ever have produced in the last 12 years of having my supplement company is a high molecular weight carbohydrate. I originally was introduced to it by Art Atwood, may he rest in peace. He was selling Vitargo here for the first time. He had the rights to sell Vitargo in this country. And I liked Vitargo a lot because it was a high molecular weight carb. It had a lot of great properties of pulling nutrients into the muscle cells. It got absorbed from the stomach faster than sugar. It didn't bloat you. The problem with Vitargo was it was goopy. It was it would get all like the bottom of the glass, like you had to like scoop it out, and it was just too goopy. And so when I made my high molecular weight amylopectin, which is also known as waxamase, when I found that product and realized that you can micronize it almost like you would with creatine, so that when you mix it, it mixes like with your finger, and it had all the same properties of Vitargo. It's a high molecular weight carb, and it did all the great things that it does. I started producing that, and we had a bunch of flavors of it, and then I realized a lot of people mix it right into their shake. So I've been selling an unflavored version of it. We ran out of it, and people wanted to try to talk me out of doing a carb product. We are coming back out with it again. The problem with the marketplace is that the pricing from manufacturers, or actually from the raw material makers, is so high lately that a lot of times you have to wait till the price is right. Otherwise, you wind up having to charge too much to the public. So the prices finally are in the reasonable range. So we're going to be producing our unflavored CARBOLYZE again. It will be out. It's a popular product for people who train and everything like that. And I'm sorry that we had a little lapse in. Same thing with ProtoLyze. ProtoLyze, we have the new ProtoLyze coming out is phenomenal. I tweaked it a little. It tastes better. It has a really nice mouthfeel to it, and I put probiotics in it. It's going to be off the charts. I have all the samples in my house. I've been using it every night. I love the product. It's probably, and for the people who use ProtoLyze, our pudding product, they're so mad at me that we've been out of stock for about 6 months. And once again, they stopped making one of the ingredients. I had to find a replacement. Luckily, after 6 months, I found one that's actually better than what was in there. But once again, I'm a perfectionist. I can't release anything that's not perfect. That's just it's not in my character. But I think you guys will thank me when the products hit the market again.
Let's go to Carla Mesquita. What can I do to improve the production of total T3 if I'm in the minimum parameter of the lab studies and the TSH is a little high? I'm a natural wellness athlete.
Yeah, if your TSH is high, that is basically telling you that your body is not producing enough T3. Now, remember, this is how the thyroid gland works. So that you have the pituitary gland releases, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. It stimulates your thyroid gland in your neck here to produce thyroxine, which is known as T4. That's inactive thyroid hormone. In the body, the T4 will get converted via an enzyme system, iodidase, I think it's called, into T3, which is the active thyroid hormone. Okay. And then active thyroid hormone is what can control your metabolism. If you have enough T3 being produced from T4, that will feed back to your hypothalamus and pituitary and basically say, okay, this is the right amount. And so TSH will stay at that level and you'll have this nice consistent loop. If there's not enough T3 in the body, active thyroid hormone, what the pituitary and the hypothalamus gland sense is that there's not enough being produced. So we need to send out some more signal. Basically, it's the brain screaming to the thyroid gland, hey guys, we need more thyroid output. Okay, but if the thyroid gland can't respond and produce more because for whatever reason it's sluggish, maybe the person has an autoimmune disease or maybe the person's not taking enough iodine in their diet, then it won't produce more. And if it doesn't produce more, you're going to see these constantly higher and higher TSH levels going on. Now, this person obviously produces some thyroid hormone, but maybe not enough for the body to be comfortable with the levels that are out there. Now, the question is it because T4 is not converting to T3 and there is enough T4, but it's just not converting? Or is there not enough T4 being produced and thus when it's converting over, there's not enough being? The only way to test that out would be to go for blood work, get a complete thyroid profile done, TSH, T3, T4, and then make an assessment. If you are low, you might have to supplement. You might, if your T4 levels are normal, but your T3 is low, you might have to supplement with T3. If the doctor sees, hey, you know what, this person is just not producing enough T4, that's an easier fix because you give the person a little extra T4 and then the body converts what it needs to T3. And then that usually leads to the TSH levels coming down. So once again, got to get blood work done. I know it's hard in this day and age to find a good endocrinologist to balance all this off, but I would check it out because it could be affecting, your metabolic rate. And a lot of times if your thyroid hormone, active thyroid hormone is a little low, can cause depression too. So you might want to check it out.
Let's go to Ryan. Have you ever, and would you ever advise for the use of suspensions compared to fast-acting esters in bodybuilding?
I guess he means as opposed to slow-acting esters. Yeah. Because testosterone suspension is a fast-acting. What it basically is, it's the testosterone powder in water, essentially. Sterile water, hopefully. And you have to shake it up and you draw it up and you inject it. The problem is that free testosterone that's not bound to an ester like an anthate, cypionate, or propionate, okay, is a testosterone that works super fast, but then disappears very fast too. A lot of times, I think you only get about 8 hours of really high potency from each testosterone injection. As a matter of fact, we used to use suspension back in the day because they used to, Steris was a company that, an American company that made it. It was legitimately made. It would come in 30 cc bottles. And my experience with using it, I said to my friends, I said, you know what? I know everyone takes this every other day. I said, not only should this be taken every day, I believe it should be taken twice a day. The problem was that wherever you injected this stuff, it left you so sore, okay, that if you injected this twice a day, within a week, you'd be aching everywhere and you just couldn't do it. But I knew intuitively that that was the best way to use suspension because it just didn't last more than a good 8 hours in the body. And so you wanted at least to have the coverage for the full, 14, 15 hours you're awake during the day. And it just didn't do that. So what I did to solve that problem was I recommended, and this is one of my techniques I came up with, because a lot of guys would either use water-based testosterone or the oil-based. I said, you got to take at least one shot of oil-based, whether it be SIP, and anthate, or sustanon, to give you a base level. And then when you take the suspension on top of that, you get a nice big peak. Even if it only lasts 8 hours, even when that comes down, you still have that one shot a week that you're taking that's going to give you a base level. And it worked pretty well like that, but it still left you really sore. So I don't know why people even, after a while, I just said to myself, why am I torturing myself with this stuff? It's not like it's that great. And I just stopped using it. And in the second half of my career, I only used long-acting testosterone esters. And you know what? I look better. So I'm not really a big fan of short-acting stuff. Same thing with Winstrol. Winstrol injectable is just basically stanozol powder in sterile water. You can drink it. You can just take Winstrol pills. I kind of like the injectable Winstrol better because Winstrol oral does have a little bit of toxicity. So when you inject it, it's a little less toxic. But that's up to you. If it's leaving welts and it's hurting everywhere you're injecting it, then that's not a good thing either. So aside from the last 6 weeks before a show, I try to stay away from anything fast acting like that.
Brahma Hill. So my question has to do with carbs and insulin dependence. This may also affect non-diabetics as well. During strenuous lifting, is it beneficial to maintain a higher blood sugar level during your training? I know protein intake is important for recovery, but how would carbs play a role in recovery as a diabetic or even someone who is not? If your sugar drops during training, what is a sustainable carb to eat instead of gulping soda and candy?
Yeah. The good thing about the body is that there's something called counter-regulatory hormones. And what those do is when your blood sugar gets too low, they raise blood sugar. And those are cortisol. Cortisol can turn amino acids into glucose, and glucagon, which is also produced from the pancreas. And glucagon basically takes sugar that's stored in the liver and the muscles, and it releases it into the bloodstream as free glucose. So those are always at work. The only reason why you would ever go super low while you're training would be because maybe if you're taking insulin, maybe you took too much by accident, or maybe you didn't eat enough carbs before your workout, or maybe you ate a lot of sugary carbs and you got a huge insulin surge in your body, which dropped your blood sugar too low, or you took maybe some of these glucose disposal agents. I remember once I took like vanadyl sulfate before I went to the gym, and man, did I get low blood sugar there. I thought you would have thought I took like 20 units of a fast-acting insulin. That's how low my blood sugar went. So I never did that again. So that's why I always wonder how stupid people are to take insulin before they go to the gym. Now, if you're a type 1 diabetic and you have to take insulin, because you produce none, that's a different story. But type 1 diabetics know how much to take. If they eat 20 grams of carbs, they take 2 units of Humalog. If they eat 40 grams of carbs with a meal, they take, 4 units of Humalog. So, but for people who are like bodybuilders trying to supplement, don't take your insulin before you go to the gym and you won't go low. It's that simple. Take it after the gym if you want, and in that case, if you go a little low, you can just eat a little extra carbs and tighter it off and balance it off. But that's why I always tell people the long-acting insulins are really the safest, because they work so slowly in the background that if you did go a little low, your body has plenty of time to release glucagon and raise blood sugar. And so most people on long-acting insulins don't go low. I take a long-acting insulin at night once a day. I take a Tresiba or Toujeo, which are both 36-hour insulins. And that's just to keep my fasting blood sugars low. I don't like being on that borderline of like 92, 93, 94. I don't want to have to limit my intake of carbs at night because I'm worried about waking up, high. And most people, if you ask a doctor, they would say 94, 95 is not high. But I believe cumulatively over years and years and years, it is high. And if my body can't keep my blood sugars under 90 when I wake up in the morning, that to me is telling me that my pancreas is just not capable of producing large amounts of insulin. So I would rather take a long-acting and supplement so that my body, now I'm waking up in the 80s. I'm waking up at 85 or 86 or 87, blood sugars, which is exactly where I want my blood sugars. That's the safety zone, under 90. You're not going to get cumulative side effects from that long term. And you know what? I don't have to worry now. If I want to have a bigger meal, my body has enough insulin on board because I'm supplementing what my body's naturally producing. And, that's a personal decision on my part. You don't have to do that. But I work with a lot of bodybuilders who eat a lot of food. And if you're eating 8 times a day and you're eating, 400 grams of carbs every day and you're eating, 400 grams of protein every day, that's a lot of food that needs to be, absorbed. And what do you think's doing the absorbing? It's insulin that's doing it. So, if you already have sluggish insulin production, or you're over the age of 35 and your insulin production might have dropped a little bit, and you're taking growth hormone, which makes your insulin doesn't work as well, that's putting a tremendous burden on your pancreas. And if you're waking up with higher blood sugars, which a lot of guys are, I could probably say 50% of the people I work with wake up with higher blood sugars. We put them on a long-acting insulin. It solves the problem, and no one goes low. I had one person who went low, and we couldn't figure out why he was going low every night. And then he realized, he went to Walmart, he asked for a bottle of Novulin N, and they actually gave him the R, which is the fast acting. So he was taking faster acting before bed. Of course, he was waking up in the middle of the night going low, but that was a mistake, that was made. But aside from that, no one goes low on long acting.
Take a couple of more questions. A bit of a, I guess, anonymous, I don't want to say confession, but admission. There's a team of 20 women under a single coach, 4 of which all have kidney failure, stage 3, or 3 in stage 2, 1 in stage 3. All 100% natural bodybuilders of various ages, mid-20s to mid-40s. Supplements are standard: whey protein, mid-range pre-workouts, greens, and some other over-the-counter things like multivitamins, etc. What could be the possible cause for their kidney failure?
For me to speculate in that scenario, it would be, I'd have to be the dumbest person of all time. It could be the water they're drinking, for all I know. They might be poisoned. There's no rational rhyme or reason. Do they all have high blood pressure? I mean, high blood pressure is the number one reason why people go into kidney failure. You told me they're not on gear. It's not like they're bikini competitors. They're not walking around at 300 pounds in the off season. So I don't know. I have no idea. It'd be a bad coincidence. I don't know. Like I said, I forget who was I interviewing who told me that, Dennis Newman. I did an interview recently on Dennis James' podcast, and Dennis Newman was on there, and we were talking about the fact that after he won the USA in 1995, he was diagnosed with leukemia, which he obviously had while he was actually prepping for the show, and he felt terrible. And I said, I wonder why you got leukemia. And he said, years later, I found out that the place I was living was on built on some kind of a dump or something like that. And there was like some toxic chemicals in the ground. And a lot of people had gotten leukemia from that neighborhood. And which makes sense, rather than blame, growth hormone or his testosterone he took or his lifestyle, because he was still only 24 years old at the time, or 26 years old. He was poisoned, basically. And usually a lot of times when you see these weird, these people all of a sudden are in kidney failure and they're young and they're healthy and they work out, it's usually something else that's causing it. So I wouldn't be shocked if something, was tainted in the water supply or something they were taking. Maybe a supplement was tainted or something like that. Who knows? Like I said, it would be silly for me to speculate because I just don't know the situation.
H. Urbina, simple question, but I guess obviously a lot to go into this. How to get definition in legs?
Is this from a woman, Sid?
No.
Oh.
Well, I don't think so. It looks like a dude.
Oh. No, because sometimes women have tough time getting their legs leaner and their upper bodies get lean real easily. And a lot of times it's because people don't take in enough essential fatty acids. Because in women, when you don't eat enough essential fats in your diet, metabolically what happens is their bodies hoard fat because of estrogen production in their body in the lower body. Once you restore normal essential fatty acid levels to their body, whether it be through supplements, diet, or both, they start losing fat evenly from the upper and lower body. And I discovered this many years ago. And that's why 99% of the women that I work with are always on respectable amounts of fats in their diet, at least usually a gram per pound, usually a half a gram per pound that they weigh. So if they're 100 pounds, usually I'm giving them at least 50, grams of fat. Most of the women I work with are probably in the 150 range. So they're doing like 75 grams of fat per day. And they don't necessarily do it every single day of the week, but they're getting a lot more fat than they were eating, which most people eat almost no fat in their diet. And that's a big mistake, especially if you're having trouble losing fat on the lower body. Now, if you're a man and you don't have high estrogen in your body, that shouldn't really be the case, but some people just hold their fat there. And you can't spot reduce fat. I see these people walking on the treadmill and kicking their legs out and squeezing their glutes. I see them knee-highing on the Stepmaster. They look ridiculous. You're not going to spot reduced fat, okay? It's just not going to happen. If you try to do it, you're wasting your time and just basically you look like a lunatic in the gym. You have to just diet it off. Cardio obviously is important, but you're not going to spot. When you do cardio, you're burning fat evenly throughout your whole body. Same thing with diet. When you're dieting and your body's losing fat, you don't lose it from one area over another. You lose it evenly over your entire body. It's just that the places that hold the most fat in your body take the longest to lose it. Because let's face it, if you're losing 1/8 of an inch of fat every week from your body, the places that don't have as much fat will get lean and you'll say, oh, shoot, I got crazy ripped abs, but my glutes are still soft. Oh, because you had an extra 20 pounds of fat on your butt. It's going to take longer to get that off. And that's just a time thing. So, you can use fat burners, obviously, like clenbuterol and T3. There are natural fat burners like my lipolyze fat burner. There are, people do cardio. They restrict carbs. Obviously, carb restriction works well, especially for women with lower body fat too. But it's a combination of everything, and you have to just be patient. Everyone has different, trouble areas. A lot of guys have trouble areas on their lower back and their abs, and that's the last to come in. Some people, it's glutes and hamstrings. Some women, it's thighs. And it depends on the person, and you have to be patient. That's why it's terrible to look in the mirror and hit a front double body and say, wow, I'm in shape. Well, yeah, from the front you are, but not from the back. Not from the back. You still have work to do. So that's why it's also important to have someone around, whether it be a coach or another person who can, legitimately tell you, hey, you're ready or you're not ready.
Take one more question from Nico Cantemir. Your opinion on Milos's body recomposition. I guess just explain it. Take carbs pre, intra, post, and the other meals, protein and fat, is logical because the most demanding moment of the day to take carbs is around the training.
Everything works if you do it religiously and you apply it. The problem is, I find, is that when people diet, let's say you're eating, obviously, if in Milos's approach, you're eating carbs on this diet. So let's say that we're going to be giving someone carbs. How many grams is obviously depends on how big the person is. If they're 300 pounds, they're going to be eating a lot more than the person who's 200 pounds. But I like to spread them out through most of the day. The only time I don't give carbs usually is before bed. Because I feel like if you're eating carbs, your brain is using carbs as a fuel source. If you're not eating it, at certain parts of the day, and then other parts you are eating it, you're only going to feel good when you're actually eating the carbs. On the parts of the day where you're not eating carbs, your brain is not going to switch into ketosis. It takes 3 days of carb restriction to do that. You're only restricting carbs half the day. The part of the day where you're not eating carbs, you're going to feel terrible. You're going to feel irritable. You're going to feel kind of goofy in the brain because your brain has no fuel source. So I don't see the advantage of that. In other words, if you're going to eat 150 grams of carbs for the day, let's say that's your carb requirement, or that's what your coach is telling you to eat, why not eat 30 grams 5 times a day, and then the last meal, the sixth meal, just don't have any? It spreads it out better. You have a much better blood sugar level. You feel better. Your body's going to still store glycogen the same way it would as if you slam it into 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day. So I don't understand the benefit of doing that. Now, Milos does have a different protocol off-season wise, where he slams a lot of carbs in pre, intra, and post workout because he does an insulin protocol with that. That's a different story. That I understand why he's doing that, but I wouldn't understand why, while dieting for competition, why you would restrict carbs at some meals but not other. It doesn't make sense unless your carb intake is so low that you just don't have enough to spread around. You don't want to eat 10 grams of carbs, all day, at 5 meals, because you're only eating 50 grams of carbs a day. If you're eating 50 grams of carbs a day, I can understand 25 and 25 at 2 of your meals, but not if you're eating 100, 150 grams. You're better off spreading it out. That's just my philosophy.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. We have full wall coverage this weekend of the Texas Pro, and a lot to look forward to on that show, with Andrew Jack, Hunter Labrada, Carlos Thomas Jr. making his pro debut. Chris Aceto and I will be at the show, so we'll have our live coverage as well. Dave will be back in the studio. He'll have his recap as well. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. We have all new episodes of Heavy Muscle Radio, yesterday's episode of After Hours, and then, of course, tomorrow, all new episode of not only Iron Rage, but a new episode of Lee Priest and Jimmy the Bull. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.